their development and the innovation priorities as they see it. Then a little bit more detail from the Catapult team in terms of the technology demonstration element and also on the business growth element of the program. We'll finish around 10:45 hopefully for some question and answer session. We're also recording this session, so if you don't catch anything, then please feel free to go to our website and download it. And also there's a link within the website to ask any further questions with an email address, tigger@orecatapult.org.uk. So just to give the initial introduction, if we go to the next slide, please. So a lot of people will have seen the recent announcements by the Prime Minister in relation to offshore wind being a key priority for the green revolution for the UK. So there's been announcements around achieving 40 gigawatts of offshore renewable energy capacity by 2030 over the next decade, which is no doubt quite a challenging target, but definitely one which is achievable. And the plan from the government is to create more than 2,000 jobs in construction and support more than 60,000 in industry. And you can see a quote on the screen there from the Prime Minister wanting the UK to become the new Saudi Arabia for offshore wind in terms of supply chain growth and industry growth. So next slide, please. So a little bit more about the TIGGOR program. What is it and what's it going to do that could potentially benefit yourself? So this is a new 3.5 million renewables innovation program, which we've established with funding from the North of Tyne Combined Authority and working in partnership with the Northeast Regional LEP and also the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership Program, with industry sponsorship from Equinor and EDF acting as key technical advisors to the program. Basically, there's two key streams to the program. One is support for technology demonstration projects. So that's basically going to be a competitive process to provide funding, to develop new technologies, to de-risk them and bring them to market more rapidly in specific areas identified for the offshore wind supply chain. And the other key element is business growth. So providing specialist innovation advice and market intelligence and business planning for companies which operate in this sector or indeed want to get into the sector. And there's a web link that you can see there on the screen in terms of finding out further details after this webinar. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about where the North of Tyne region is. So you can see highlighted on the screen in red, North of Tyne is Northumberland, Newcastle and North Tyneside region, quite a large geographical area with over 23,000 businesses and a significant regional economy with a number of businesses already in the digital, offshore engineering and subsea technology sectors. So this 3.5 million I've talked about is basically going to act as a catalyst to stimulate new products and services. And you can see on the bottom of the screen, there's a number of companies already developing novel products and services across the whole offshore wind supply chain, from O&M to novel rotors and turbine support components, substructures, and electrical infrastructure. Next slide, please. So in terms of the technology demonstration program, this is going to be centered around the North of Tyne region, so the Northumberland, North Tyneside, Newcastle area. And we're basically opening a competitive call in 4 thematic areas, which are quite broad, it's safe to say. So data and digital twins, looking at improved wind farm analysis, component level analysis, next generation O&M, reliability and AI. So broad spectrum of activity looking at novel technologies to improve O&M, better sensors, better materials, improved artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques, smart O&M robotics. Obviously, a lot of these wind farms are further and further offshore, so improved inspection techniques and technologies, including autonomous surface vessels, remotely operated vehicles, and the autonomous underwater vehicles. And then more of an open category, where if we don't fit into the areas above, you can also apply to get involved in the technology demonstration program. We've outlined some potential technologies there in relation to cable monitoring and energy systems. All of this information is on the website, so you can look at it in detail. And these areas have been agreed in partnership with our industry sponsors, EDF and Equinor. Next slide, please. So in terms of the business support element of the programme, as I mentioned, this is in conjunction with the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership. This is covering a slightly broader region, just the north of Tyne area. This is covering the whole North East Lep area. You can see on the screen there, the North East Lep area includes South Tyneside, Durham, Gateshead and Sunderland as well. And basically the funding here is also supported by the North East Lep and the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership. And this is a series of business support programs depending on what stage of development your business may be in. So the three programs you can see listed are the Launch Academy, which will be a program for innovation startup businesses, our National Fit for Offshore Renewables program, looking at market-ready entriness, which we'll roll out in the Northeast region, and the Wind Expert Support Toolkit, managed by the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership, which is basically specialist support on business development and market strategy. So all slightly distinct, and my colleague Radmeen will talk about these later in the program session. Next slide, please. So the benefits of engagement in the TIGGOR program, I think they're pretty clear from what I've already discussed, but just to outlay them, it's access to a competitive funding technology demonstration program, so you can de-risk and demonstrate a new technology or service. And later on in the session, my colleague Graham Smith will run through how that works and some of the intervention rates to apply for. Business support program, working with new startups in the sector and improving market entry potential. And also, thirdly, to increase UK supply chain content in line with sector deal targets to achieve more than 60% and create new international exports. It's pretty clear that a lot of the developers have an interest in using UK technology, so this program over the next 2 years is really to stimulate the potential opportunities for companies in that sector so they can further develop novel services and technologies which may be of use. And then finally, obviously through the program, you have access to our wind research team and world-leading research infrastructure capabilities at the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult. And we have a technical advisory panel consisting of Equinor and EDF, two of the major UK and indeed international offshore wind farm owner operators and developers, to basically demonstrate your technologies or services to them and basically get a bit of a steer on how you can better commercialize your service or product for our industry to ultimately lead to potential future commercial contracts. So that's a broad introduction to the program. We'll now move on to Maria Antonio, who is the Principal Sector Economy Manager for the North of Tyne, to give a brief introduction into the regional interest in this program. So over to you, Maria.
Hello everyone, my name is Maria Antonio, Principal Economy Strategy Manager at the North of Tyne Combined Authority, and over the last year and a bit I have been working with colleagues to operationalise the Devolved Investment Fund, and I lead on certain areas. Green growth and offshore wind is one of them. I'll just take you through a couple of slides just to sort of illustrate where the TIGGOR program fits in the wider sort of program of activity that the Combined Authority is leading on at the moment. Next slide, please, Vicky. I think it's important to know, I'll skip through the next couple of slides, but I wanted to emphasise that green growth, clean growth was a priority for the Combined Authority before the pandemic, and it was one of the key sector narratives and investment programs that we were developing. However, we see it very much as a part of recovery, and very much so features in our discussions with government at a North of Tyne level and a wider regional level of how we want to lead on a cleaner and more inclusive recovery. Next slide, please. This slide, this is part of our submission to government in terms of the comprehensive spending review, but also in terms of future devolution. It highlights the impact of coronavirus pandemic on the North of Tyne, but also highlights where there are opportunities for us to pivot towards a more sustainable and inclusive future economy, and green economic recovery is very much part of the narrative. Next slide, please. And as you will see from this, we've submitted a 5-point plan, and this sort of frames our activity moving forward, and accelerating a transition to the future economy, which focuses on our transition to net zero, coupled with investment in jobs and skills and place-based interventions, will support recovery in the future, and very much builds on the kind of priorities of the Combined Authority before the pandemic as well. Next slide, please. So our Combined Authority Cabinet have considered and agreed a strategic approach for energy and green growth. So this was back in March, and what we've been doing in the meantime is operationalising this. So we recognised the opportunity for growth in the clean energy sector, building on the assets and the capabilities in the North East and the North of Tyne specifically as they stand, and sort of looked at the opportunities to create that we see to create conditions for radical innovation, and recognise that skills are very much part of the story as well. So we've brought forward a programme of investment which includes sort of 25 million for offshore and subsea up to 2028. We've got a £10 million Green New Deal, which is looking at the decarbonisation of heat, transport and industry, but looking at the economic opportunity around that. So very much sort of part of our narrative. And next slide, please. I'll finish on this next slide, which sort of illustrates what we're doing around offshore wind and subsea. So there are two main components to our investment programme. One is the Supply Chain Innovation Programme, which obviously James has introduced and this session is all about. We also have a programme around infrastructure. We had an expression of interest call, which was launched over the summer and closed a few weeks ago, where we're pulling together expressions of interest for infrastructure investment, the main aim of which is to build a pipeline of proposals, some of which we will be able to support through the Combined Authority, but mainly it enables us to have a much stronger pipeline to illustrate the kind of investment that is needed to unlock growth in the region. We have also working very closely with the North East LEP and Tees Valley LEP and Combined Authority. We developed a clean energy pitch which was submitted to government in advance of the spending review and on request of government, actually, because they recognise the opportunity in the wider North East around clean energy. There's also, you would have seen the Portside Hubs expression of interest that government launched, which is part of a £160 million programme, and we've worked very closely with partners across the North of Tyne, but also the wider North East, to pull together a coordinated proposal. Working again with partners in Blythe, Tyne and Weir to pull together not only the proposal for investment, but to sort of illustrate the narrative and sort of make the case. The mayors and all politicians in North of Tyne are particularly concerned about local content and how businesses in the UK don't seem to be able to, they're not able to necessarily access all the opportunities that might be possible. So this is particularly a lobbying position that the mayor's keen to pursue, and we're looking at building the evidence around that and trying to initiate conversations. And lastly, promoting opportunities. I suppose it is a bit of a catch-all, but we see a role for the Combined Authority to working with partners across the region to support investment in innovation, and support trade and exports and inward investment as well. So that just gives you a bit of an overview, and happy to answer questions later on. Thank you.
That's great, thanks Maria. I should have said actually in the introduction that in the Q&A chat box as we're going through the presentations, if any sort of invitees on the webinar want to ask anything, please just type it in, and when we get to the end of the session we'll try and mop up any questions over a sort of 10-minute period. So next presenter is Andrew Saunders, who's the O&M leader for Doggo Bank and works for Equinor, one of the key technical sponsors of this program, who's going to give us a bit of an overview of what's happening there. So over to you, Andrew. Thanks.
Morning all, and I have to start with an apology that I have no video today. I've had some Zoom issues. This, I'm sure is a phrase that we've all heard at some point over the last 9 months. If we go to the next slides, please. So as an introduction to Doggo Bank, for those who aren't familiar, it's the world's biggest offshore wind farm under development, totaling 3.6 gigawatts in installed capacity that will build out in 3 phases over the coming 5 or so years. We've got Doggo Bank A, which was previously known as Creekback A, Doggo Bank B, previously Creekback B, and Doggo Bank C, previously Teesside A. Each of those is 1.2 gigawatts of capacity. A and B, as you may have seen in the press there, we're getting close to financial close at the minute, and C will follow on in the future from that. The projects have been awarded record low CFDs in the UK in allocation round 3, averaging about £41 a megawatt hour in strike prices in 2012 prices, bringing some new challenges from now sort of the previous projects where you're talking much higher, sort of £150 a megawatt hour and upwards. And we should be getting is around 4.5 million homes in the UK being supplied with renewable electricity from Doggo Bank, which is about 5% of the UK's electricity demand. If we could skip to the next slide, please. So in terms of the technology we're installing, and I'll say that the next couple of slides we can confirm is correct for Doggo Bank A and B, and announcements on contract award for C will follow on in the future. So for A and B, we'll be installing between the 2 projects 190 GE Haliade X turbines. There'll be the recently announced 13 megawatt capacity, so already a large upgrade from the 12 megawatt. And currently the turbine, as you may have seen in the press, has just produced the world record in terms of daily production, operating flat out at 13 megawatts for the entire day in the port of Rotterdam over in the Netherlands. 220 meter rotor and nearly 40,000 square meter swept area, and this is a vast turbine. If you compare the growth in either the size and the complexity from say 3.6, where you kind of needed the roof open to be comfortable, this is a good size home almost inside for scale purposes. And on to the next slide, please. Then the transmission system to bring all of the power back to shore. This will be a first in the UK for offshore wind. There's obviously a few of these stations out in the Baltic Sea, but we'll be using HVDC from ABB with a platform designed by Able. And that will collect all of the 1.2 gigawatts from the turbines and convert that into DC power for transmission back to shore over a 200 kilometer export cable, where both A and B will have their own separate offshore platforms, separate onshore converter stations, and both connect into National Grid's Creekback substation. And to highlight here, this is brings new technology to the offshore wind industry in the UK, and a lot more oil and gas competence that we bring into here with all the process type utility systems as well. If we could go to the next slide, please. So some operational challenges that we're going to face, and I guess I forgot to mention earlier that SSE, our partners in Doggo Bank, are leading the construction phase, and Equinor is leading the operations phase. That's why I'm here as Equinor today, presenting to you. So yeah, the challenges that we're facing at Doggo Bank. This is one of the furthest offshore wind farms from the coast. We're talking 110, 150 nautical miles from northeast England, and vast sizes and scales and distances. Project areas between 500 and 6 kilometres squared. And if we compare that back to one of our early Equinor sites, Sheringham Shoal, we can actually fit Sheringham Shoal inside of some spare space between turbines in Doggo Bank A. So that's the kind of the growth scale size that we've seen. And vast distances also between turbines and between fields as well when we're talking about marine and logistics. So between some turbines within the fields, you're talking 10 to 14 kilometre spacings, and across between the east of C, which is right out on in the international boundary of Denmark, to the west of A, you're talking some 50, 60 nautical miles. Also hundreds of assets. We plan to operate these all as one overall wind farm. So rather than the sort of in the range of 50 to 100 turbines that most operators deal with now, we're coming up towards 300 assets to manage. And harsh weather conditions. We are right out in the middle of the North Sea here, so we're past the sort of the 1.2 metres significant we see on the nearshore and midshore projects that exist today, and we're up around the 1.5 plus metres significant, 1.6, 1.7 out on Doggo Bank. And to just bring some scale home, what you can see is the little image in the top right there. That's Doggo Bank A and Doggo Bank B plotted over the North Tyne combined area going upwards there. So to bring that scale home to many of us, you can see the kind of sails that we're talking about. If we jump to the next slide, please. So in terms of where we're at now as operations for Doggo Bank, we're in the process now for chartering the service operation vessels and dotcrafts that we will use on the project. And as we've published in our latest press releases, the organisation is starting to be recruited already. Currently the operations director position is out, and that will build up over time, slowly next year, and then a large recruitment drive in 2022. To meet when we are going to move into our new O&M base, and we're very pleased that that's in the northeast of England at the Port of Tyne. So that'll be a brand new facility there opening late 22. And throughout this time, we'll be looking at securing our long-term operational contracts for the projects to help us with deliver the operations and maintenance services that we need to. So balance of plant, transmission surveys, things like that. Ready for first power from the Doggo Bank A phase in 2023. So can you go to the next slide, please? So for the challenges for this TIGGOR program, we're really pleased and excited to have been asked to come on board here as an industrial sponsor. And really how I'm trying to frame this from Doggo Bank is, how do we get from this? And as you can see here, a lot of people, a lot of paperwork, a lot of manual work that requires people getting onto assets, and whilst we can do that safely, we can do it even more safely if we reuse and retrain those people to be using digitalization initiatives and advanced technologies to be able to perform inspections and repairs remotely, rather than needing to put people at some level of risk by making them transfer offshore. So yeah, how do we get from this to, if we go to the next slide, please. Maybe a little hiccup here on the next slide on my screen. So yeah, there we go, thank you. To something like this, and you can see we foresee a much more sort of digital world. And this is where we kind of really frame our challenges to the industry in this program. So a lot in smart O&M and robotics. So looking at what we can do with autonomous seagoing vessels, both surface and subsea, for inspections, repairs, testing. So global visual inspections, close visual inspections, scour surveys, cable to burial surveys, cathodic protection, contact readings, flooded member detection on jackets, weld inspections by things like alternating current field. And that's a whole broad sort of spectrum of things that we think could be done in the future, using autonomous vessels or remotely controlled vessels. And then coming up into the air, blades is a key focus area for us, and how we can move on from what we see at the minute, which is good levels of drone inspection for sort of your global visual inspections of blades, but we want to go much further than that. So detection of GRP, delaminations, lightning protection system continuity measurements, quality of repairs, and even maybe some basic repairs as well by robotics, cleaning, non-destructive testing, things like that. And alongside all of that is then the use of data and make sure we have both the systems and the monitoring and the setup, but then also the algorithms and the programs to take all that data and to analyze it, to be able to predict and help us prevent failures. As you see on every wind farm, if you can predict failures and repair them before you get there, you lose a lot of production just in the sort of the access time. So if we can remove that access time by visiting a turbine before it fails, then we should see improved performance from all of our wind farms. And I guess the final comment from me here is technology that we think of now. Maybe we're only thinking 5, 10, 15 years ahead, but these wind farms want to be looking at sort of 30, 35 plus years of life. So unknown technology potentially can be the driving force for greater than 50% of the operational life of these new wind farms. And the challenge, I guess, is both for us as an operator and out to the industry is how do we prepare for this unknown, and are we actually prepared for the known, and being able to make sure we can deliver these operations as best and as safely as we possibly can. So really looking forward to working with this program and the innovations that come in for assessment and we work together with over the coming years in this program. So thank you very much.
That's great, Andrew. That's a very comprehensive overview and some really exciting and interesting stuff there. I think it's safe to say just the sheer scale of the Doggo Bank and the potential technical opportunities are pretty amazing. So yeah, I look forward to working with you on that, and we'll take any sort of questions on Andrew's discussion towards the end. I'd just like to move on now to Graham Smith, who's the R&D Programs Manager at ORE Catapult, who'll cover some more detail on the TIGGOR technology core element of the program. So over to you, Graham.
Thanks, James. Good morning, everyone. As James said, I'm Graham Smith, the R&D Programs Manager at ORE Catapult. And if you could go to the next slide, please. I'll talk about some of the key dates, first of all, for the technology demonstration part of this program, which is coming in at around 3 million. So registration is already open. That opened on 20th of October, and applications opened on the 9th of November. So we're running this webinar both today and a more detailed webinar on Wednesday for the tech demo program to give more guidance around the application process ahead of the full application deadline on the 15th of January. We're planning then to notify applicants on the 16th of February ahead of project starts on 1st of April. So could I have the next slide, please? So applicants must be an NTCA located company of any size. So that encompasses Newcastle, North Tyneside or Northumberland, either currently or at the point of contract commencement. Applicants must demonstrate existing or potential capability in the offshore wind supply chain, and applicants must be able to demonstrate a clear business need or market opportunity for the chosen project. Evidence of support or sponsorship from an end user in the offshore wind sector will go greatly towards the application. Next slide, please. So here you can see some details. As I mentioned, there will be more details on Wednesday. We have 4 technology areas: O&M reliability, optimization, AI, smart O&M robotics, digitization, application of digital twins, and an open category which includes cables and hybrid energy systems. Project activity falls into one of 2 categories, either industrial research, which encompasses activity at TRLs 4 to 6, and experimental development, which encompasses activity at TRLs 7 to 9. Projects will be of 12 to 18 months duration, and project sizes should be in the region of 100k to £500,000. The eligible project costs will depend on the size of your company and the nature of the project. So for industrial research projects at 4 to 6, you can get up to 60% of your costs if you're a small to medium-sized business, and up to 50% of your costs if you're a large business. For experimental development projects at 7 to 9, you can get up to 45% if you're a micro or small organization, 35% if you're a medium-sized organization, and 25% if you're a large organization. Okay, next slide, please. So the application process and evaluation, which can be found on our website at the web address there, is as follows. You download the application pack from the website, have a look at the scope and guidance, complete the application form and the finance form, and then attach those forms to an email sent to tigor@orecatapult.org.uk. Deadline is 15th of January next year, and assessment and feedback due by 16th. We will be judging applications on 4 categories. Those categories are the company background and relevance to the call, with weighting 20%, the clear innovative technology opportunity with weighting 30%, the appropriate approach and focus on delivery, which is again also 20%, and NTCA impact, jobs and exports at 30%. Okay, so as I said, there'll be a lot more detail on Wednesday, as well as these slides again. If any of you also have questions after that, please ask at the end of this session or via email to the TIGGOR web address, email address. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Graham. That's a very good overview, and I guess last but not least, we'll move on to Ravneet Kaur, our Innovation Manager, who's going to talk in a little bit more detail about how the business growth support element of the programme will work. So, Ravneet, over to you.
Good morning. I've been introduced by James well. I'm Ravneet Kaur, Innovation Manager. Will be helping companies to participate in the business growth program of the TIGGOR. So TIGGOR consists of 2 strands of programs. One is the technology demonstration, as explained by Graham, and the second part is the business growth program. So I'll be running through the details of this program. Next slide, please. So I'll just cover what is involved in the program, the 2 current programs which are now open for application, and what are the timescales. Next slide, please. So the Northeast Business Growth Program is available all around Northeast. It is not only available for the North of Tyne Combined Authority areas. As for the Technology Demonstration Program, it is available for all the 7 council areas in Northeast, including Northumberland, North of Tyne Combined, North of Tyneside region, Newcastle, South Tyneside, Gateshead, Sunderland, and Durham. The business growth program is in partnership with Northeast LEP, Catapult, North of Tyne Combined Authority, and primarily being delivered by the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership. This is first of the regional program supported by the National Program Offshore Wind Growth Partnership. The program primarily focuses to provide the specialist innovation advice, market intelligence, and business planning for the organization operating in the sector, or any new entrants who are wanting to enter the sector and want to have a greater understanding of the sector and the opportunity that provides. Next slide, please. So these are the three main programs which are established programs, have been running by, ORE Catapult and OWGP have been running these programs and have delivered it over the last 2 years. But through this program, through the Northeast Business Growth Program, we are able to offer it to the Northeast region specifically. So the Launch Academy program is primarily, it provides an ecosystem to support commercialization of ambitious companies launching new products and services in the sector. It's focused towards mainly towards the technology developers who are developing new and innovative solutions for the sector. By this program, what we have intended to do is to bring the business support and the technology support in under one roof. So you'll be able to utilize the in-house technical ORE capabilities alongside the business growth expertise from our other partners. So the other partners coming from all the business support agencies like accountants and legal support and the growth support and the investment support and the funding support as well. It's a 9 months program with a cohort of 10 companies and primarily we'll be focusing for SMEs to participate in these programs. The Fit for Offshore program is a unique service that intends to help the Northeast supply chain to get ready to bid for bigger work for offshore renewable energy sector. It's a program which will last between 12 to 18 months and help for companies to go on a journey of business improvement and basically sector specific capability building. Companies with a £1 million worth of turnover could apply for Fit for Offshore program, and they'll be accredited after the process of 12 months if they are suitable to start bidding for those contracts. The offshore wind, OWGP's wind expert support toolkit is at the low intensity intervention business transformation program that aims to support the supply chain companies again in the region. It's more of a short-term foundational entry point support, which includes an assessment of companies' need and then identifying how that could be, how a solution could be provided by 2 days or 5 days of dedicated expert time that could address the challenges which have been identified through the diagnostics session. Next slide, please. So currently we have these two programs which are open for application, that is the Wind Expert Support Toolkit and the Fit for Offshore Renewables. The two both are available for SMEs and supply chain companies, but the main difference between these two programs is one is for the companies who are a little more well established and have a say £1 million worth of turnover and are ready to bid for work in the offshore renewable energy sector and are really trying to grow and are high growth companies. Wind Expert program is also available to those companies, but is also available to companies who are new entrants and have not established that well and would like to participate and take the capitalize on the opportunity which the offshore wind sector provides. It is a 2 to 3 days of specialist support within the framework. They can get in touch with the delivery partners and get the specialized consultancy in the areas of needs. Next slide, please. So the application opened on 5th of November. The application closes for the business growth program specifically for Fit for Offshore and West on 18th of December, 5 p.m. and the applicants will be notified with the results in the first week of January. We do have a detailed version of a briefing session on 25th of November, which you can join and understand the application process and how you can apply for these two programs. and which is more suitable for you. If you want to apply for West or fit for offshore or both, I think that would you will be able to know more about the process and understand from the program managers and get assistance in understanding which is more suitable for you. I've also attached the link to the program where you can go and find the application and register for the webinar, as well as download the application forms to apply for the program. Next slide, please. So as going back to the vision of OWGP, these programs are supporting high growth companies in the UK for to have more UK content and reaching the 60% target of the local content committed in the offshore wind sector deal as well in 2019. Thank you. Any questions? More than happy to answer at the end of the session.
That's great, and yeah, I appreciate there's a lot of information download there, and certainly as mentioned by Graham and Ravneet, there'll be 2 more detailed sessions on Wednesday afternoon in terms of the technology demonstration and business support elements of the program. I think maybe in the last 10 minutes or so, it would be good just to get the some of the panelists' views on some of the questions that are coming up. So I think just to run through some which seem to be in the chat as well as the question and answer box, but yeah, I guess for Maria, in terms of the infrastructure development that you discussed that the North of Tyne offer some funding for, could you give a quick overview of sort of when that opens up and the types of infrastructure that you're looking to support, just at a high level?
Yes, so the slide that I put up sort of covered a variety of things. So the things on the left were more the things that we're leading on, and things towards the right were things that we were involved in. So government, just in case there was any confusion, government initiated the Portside Hubs expression of interest, which is part of the £160 million, and there was a sort of the bigger Portside Hubs and smaller Portside development as part of that expression of interest. That's closed now. However, the North of Tyne Combined Authority Infrastructure Programme will be running over the next few years, and we'll run expression of interest calls about twice a year. The first one's closed, but we will be reopening another one in February, March, and there is a although I do understand a drop in the ocean, there is sort of funding, capital funding allocated there to support investment in infrastructure, whether that's portside infrastructure or infrastructure that would support, you know, that the private sector identify as important to support them, or sort of investment in demonstration type infrastructure.
Thanks, Maria. Yeah, so another good opportunity there for people wanting to develop infrastructure. I guess another question is maybe for Graham and Andrew, actually. So it's sort of twofold. I guess we've identified some technology areas in terms of, you know, robotics and O&M, but will we be looking at specific challenge cases? Is one sort of question. And the other question is around data available for the Doggo Bank site, I guess, in terms of, you know, specific Met Ocean type data. If a company's applying for this funding and wants to try and tailor, you know, its project and potentially utilize some of that data, is there a mechanism for them to go through for that, or should they just kind of benchmark based on best practice? So I guess maybe Graham, if you've got any thoughts on the technology challenges, and then if Andrew, the same question to you after, and then talk about the data. So
okay. I suppose I see that we've framed this program as a technology demonstration program, and the bulk of the money is around companies who want to commercialize their technologies, but perhaps haven't had chance to prove those technologies in the field, or basically get them to the maturity at which they can be picked up commercially. So with regard to are we setting a particular challenge, I more see it that we are providing the opportunity for technologies to be demonstrated.
Andrew, a question to you in relation to, you know, if a company wants to develop a digital tool or robotic technology to optimize it for the Doggo Bank, is there some reference sources of information that they should be utilizing?
Yeah, I think I mentioned a few use cases during my presentation, but for us, what we're looking at here is changing the risk picture and improving our LCOE. So if we can avoid putting people in more risky situations, so if we can start looking at more detailed repair and inspection techniques that say don't involve rope access, for example, that's a good focus area. Or if we can minimize the use of large survey vessels to use smaller robotic vessels to fulfill those tasks. And I guess how we look at it is we kind of look at an overall picture. So there's no point removing one task if you then still have to do the other tasks with the existing technology. So kind of we look at the bigger picture for how we're looking forward to do our operations and maintenance activities. So to utilize these technologies, but in a way that we still, a mix and match approach sometimes isn't a good idea, because if you're still needing to do 50% using the older form and the current ways of doing it, it may be cheaper and easier actually not to use the new technology. So I guess if I was to frame it, that's how I would think in my head and set those challenges. Is sometimes it's not good to be so very, very specific on a particular thing. And then to answer the question specifically on data, unfortunately, I can't say yes or no to the question, but I think it's one that we'll have to assess as and when we get there. So obviously, operational data, we won't have any from Doggo Bank until late in 2023, but we will have some wave data. But it's how and what we can do to make it available or not is something we'll have to take later down the line. I can't say a yes or a no for sure now, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's fine. It's understandable on a case-by-case basis. Seems sensible. I think, there was another question from John Best about international market opportunities. Obviously, this is focused on the north of, the northeast and the north of Tyne local supply chain. But is there opportunities internationally for companies in China, and is there any challenges and barriers to that? So I think. I've answered in the chat, but I guess what we would say is, it's this is all around developing new content for improving the UK supply chain. But clearly, there's a huge global export market out there that a lot of companies in the northeast are already servicing. So certainly, the successful applicants who develop technologies at the end of the program would be looking at their commercialization plans in terms of the scoring as well, not only in the northeast region, but internationally as well. And I think, just to point out as well that certainly I know EDF, who aren't on the line today, but may be involved in the other webinar later this week, are co-developing a wind farm in China at the moment. So I think having strong international partners with links there is going to be pretty critical. Another question in the chat is from Stephen Wilson from SMD. Who's outlined that we have a strong subsea sector in the northeast, and what do Equinor and EDF see as potential savings of removing people from boats, supporting subsea inspection, maintenance, and repair? So I think the question there is really for you, Andrew. Is do you see significant savings in reducing people, which would seem pretty clear given the distance from the Doggo Bank?
I guess yes, but there's also then the question of it's not necessarily about removing people, it's retraining and upskilling people. So it's you might go from large numbers of lower paid people offshore to smaller numbers of higher paid people onshore. So it's looking at the overall balance, of course. and it's not about necessarily removing people, it's looking at risk as well. So it's can we make an overall task safer for the operation of the wind farm. So yeah, whether the question wanted a cost answer, I can't give one, but that's how I would frame that answer.
Sure. And then I guess another question has come up in the chat from CV Hub, are planning to install an offshore wind array to make hydrogen electricity where energy is delivered by 5G connected autonomous vessels into rivers and ports where it's used by vessels to use new green energy. So I think this is more an advertisement for what CV Hub are doing, but I guess Graham, do you have any comments on that in terms of how it would fit with the different technology challenges?
Well, noticing the Thames River and Dover Port, I think what it would have to do to be eligible for this program would be somehow localized in the NTCA region. So if there was a plan to say localize in the northeast to do demos for Doggo Bank type wind farms, then we'd welcome that, certainly. There's a question above that as well, James, on industrial support for projects.
Yeah, I saw that one as well. So just coming on to that one, I guess Martin Newenberg is basically asked, they're developing a cheap, efficient system for offshore inspections, either by manned services such as ROV or autonomous survey technologies. The company's currently opening an office in Newcastle. You mentioned if advisable, have evidence of support from an end user. We are keen to showcase our idea to get this support. Who do we get in touch with? Who are the right people? So I'm guessing, Graham, you'll probably get quite a few of these queries from different technology developers during until the deadline on the 15th of January. Do you want to say how that'll be addressed?
Yeah, I think what we could perhaps do, if you send any requests like this directly to the TIGGOR email address, we'll respond to each one individually. We'll try to support where we can.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then I guess maybe it's not a question in the chat, but maybe for Ravneet in terms of the business support element. Obviously, that's available to the wider region because of the additional funding from the LEP and the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership. Do you want to maybe cover how the companies might be able to interface with the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership through the West program in a bit more detail? Will that be the same route coming in through you or direct to OWGP?
You can send the inquiries to the TIGGOR email address, just stating what you're interested in, either for the technology demonstration program or business growth program, and that can be picked up and then will be sent to the relevant team, which can discuss the programs with you. So if you're interested in any of the programs and if you have any queries regarding the West program or Fit for Offshore, just drop a line and we'll connect you to the relevant team and send you the relevant details required for you to apply.
That's great. Thanks, Ravneet. That's quite clear. So I think that kind of brings us to the end of the majority of the questions in the chat and also in the Q&A box. Actually, well, I'll say that, but just one additional one's popped up, so we'll fit that in. So Andrew Jenkins from Kinwell basically says, what activities would be relevant for cost recovery under the demonstration program? So I don't know, Graham, if you want to quickly cover that.
Yeah, I think given the time, I'll do a quick answer to that. Essentially, we've got the scope and guidance document as part of the application pack on the website that has full details inside. And on Wednesday, we're going to run a detailed webinar in which we'll go through elements like that. For instance, cost categories and so on, how to do the finance form and so on. So, yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Graham. So there'll obviously be a bit more technical detail on the assessment process and eligible costs, etc. on Wednesday as well. But a lot of that information, if you download the application pack and the forms, should be there as well, Andrew. So yeah, so I guess that brings us to a close for this introduction session. As mentioned, this session is recorded, so you can replay it at your leisure. Any questions can be addressed to the TIGGOR website, and there'll be more detailed webinars on Wednesday afternoon that you can register for to give some description on the technology demonstration program, application process, and the business support program. So I'd just like to draw to a close there and thank all of the panelists for giving an overview, and especially Andrew for giving us such a interesting overview, Doggo Bank development and the potential challenges and opportunities around technology there. So thanks everyone, and we hope you are all stimulated to apply and engage soon. Thanks very much. Bye now.